Okay, good morning, everybody. We're just waiting a couple of ticks for a few more people who are just joining. Okay, I think I'll start now. Okay, welcome, everybody. This is the third of ICSR's briefings on operational resilience. Today, we're dealing with IT and technology. ICSR has moved from our living room to our dining room, a big move. So let's get on with this. Please, may I remind everybody to turn your screens off. Can you also please turn, not your screen, sorry, your cameras, and turn your sound off. We will be doing questions. We will do those at the end of the session. There is a chat facility on this. If you can add your questions via chat, we will pick those up at the end. The next thing I need to do is to provide you with some learning objectives for those who need to use these for continuing education. The learning objective today is to achieve a good understanding of the technology issues which arise through the regulator's approach to operational resilience and the background to those issues. I'm now going to briefly introduce you to Justin, who will be doing today's presentation. Justin is a technology specialist with significant experience in architecture delivery and change management, having worked at Nuffield Health and more recently having been the divisional CIO at QBE Europe. He's presently the interim CIO at Premier Managing Agency, the Lloyd's arm of the Premier Group, and is helping them to build their new IT universe. He is also one of the ICSR Talent Pool members and is a part of our IT service offering. Justin, over to you.
Well, thank you, Kenneth. That's a very nice introduction. I appreciate that. It's my thanks to all of you too for taking the time out today to join this webinar. And certainly hope you are well and keeping safe. And as I say, it's good of you to take time out to do this in our company, our busy lives. So today is a focused 30-minute session, specifically around the technology implementation of operational resilience. Now, I appreciate fully that the slightest mention of technology for many, there's a tendency for eyes to glaze over. It's got a reputation as a very dry subject, the best of times, and best left to the techies. But it shouldn't be like that, and I really will do my best to keep this session as light as possible. In terms of technology, obviously it sits very squarely at the centre of any business. I can't really think of any important business service, whether in your organisation, in the systems and the processes you use on a day-to-day basis, technology used remotely, and even throughout our home lives. Obviously everything is underpinned by technology. And this has become even more apparent in these strange times. So if anything, it's an opportunity for you to ensure that technology is used to its full advantage. You will see during this webinar that it really is everyone's responsibility to ensure that sufficient controls are in place when you're setting your operational resilience. So in today's session, I'm going to give a quick overview of what is meant by operational resilience. Obviously, Kenneth Underhill references in much more detail in a previous webinar on the 4th of June. If you missed that session and want to become more familiar with the subject, then please have a look. You can access it via our website. It's on YouTube, so you can go in there, watch it at leisure. Perhaps bring your family along. But it's certainly a subject that is of huge importance, and I'll certainly encourage you to have a look back at those sessions. So this session is focused on technology, as I say, and the part it has to play in operational resilience. I will then go on to provide you 6 key recommendations, as I see it, for you to consider when building your technology operational resilience planning. And finally, what I think will be the kind of key next steps. So in the background, I have a very able assistant, Ben Reed. He's like the sort of Debbie McGee, for those of you who remember, of ICSR, and he's here to work his magic in the background, and we'll capture any questions you may have as we go along. If it's okay, we'll leave those questions to the end, and I'll cover them then. So as I say, contents will be introduction, then we're going to go through what is operational resilience, why it's important, six key ingredients as I see it, and then a Q&A questions at the end. So what is operational resilience? So before getting into technology aspect, it's worth just taking a minute just to review and recap what the regulators mean by operational resilience. In a joint consultation paper shared last year, the regulators defined it as the ability of firms and financial sector as a whole to prevent, to adapt, to respond, to recover and learn from operational disruptions. The operational resilience should be the combination of continued improvement, efforts from cross firms and regulators to enhance their risk management activities. This is really, I think, is a helpful definition. The FCA and PRA have then defined their own definitions for some of the components of that framework view. The PRA, for example, view it as including services provided to an external end user, such as paying a claim, whereas the FCA see it as services which, if disrupted, would cause an intolerable harm to consumers, or market integrity indeed, such as internal support services. So it's worth reflecting, I think, on that in both the PRA and FCA context. It's difficult to imagine services, as you said, that are not reliant on IT in their delivery. So it's important when you set out your framework that it's designed to meet the expectations of both regulators. It's certainly not about providing lip service. It really must have sustainable substance behind it. So moving on to why is technology resilience so important to operational resilience? So I saw this quote and it sort of rung true. It is that in a real-time economy, technology failure means business failure, but in uncertain times, it can actually lead to ruin. When extreme technology events happen, it obviously makes major news. And I'm not sure about you, but I know I find myself thinking, thank goodness that hasn't happened to us. A couple of examples here. Maersk, the shipping giant, had this nightmare scenario back in 2017 when a virus brought the company's infrastructure and top technology to a complete halt, leaving them with a $300 million bill, not to mention lost customer reputation as a result. Data is increasingly king. It's a fact more data has been produced in the last 2 years than has been produced in the entire history of the human race. So the last 2 years, more data is quite a fact. British Airways faced a £183 million bill from the regulators back in 2018 when computer hackers stole their data. So large bills attached to this, as well as customer reputation. And more recently, I think if we look at financial services, only happened a week or two ago, the insurance market, the global service provider, DXC Technology, firmed its subsidiary managed service business with recent targets of ransomware attacks. So really scary stuff. But it's not all about ransomware, and it's not all about hackers. So often it's the most simplest changes to your organization which you should focus. We've all been in situations where large projects and programs have been delivered and then has an impact when it goes into BAU, or systems that go down, in major incidents that have crash claims and reinsurance and all areas of business. So it's really important that simple changes of processes as part of a project and the impact it has on old hardware and infrastructure. So the most important step really is to become resilient, is to understand all the areas of your organization which you focus. It is really essential to understand all the key components that will be your key building blocks. It's so important to get this right, otherwise this will have a detrimental effect on your reputation, on the culture and the people and the staff and the third parties that are using your service. So we're now on to the key ingredients. So this is the kind of nuts and bolts as I see it. So when you are building your operational framework, these are the technology elements that are included. So there are 6 key areas as I see it, and we're going to go through these in a little bit more detail. But just to summarise, 6 key ingredients. The technology should be built into your operational resilience framework. One is to know your IT estate inside out, back to front, well practiced, complete full transparency across your estate, either internally or through third parties. Secondly is to create your own technology framework. And I'm going to come on to that in a bit more detail about the ingredients that go into baking that cake of a technology framework. Have a tried and tested DR plan. Practice on that plan. Security, as we see, is everything. So certainly there are products and services and planning activities out there that can help you with that. And also key is is our current life. So remote doesn't mean working in splendid isolation. It means we all need to ensure that as we work remotely, we have the control around us. And finally, we'll come on to it, ensure that everyone is involved. Not just an IT activity, not just breathe a sigh of relief and think I can sleep at night because technology is sorting that out for us. Everyone is involved, top down, sideways, bottom up, however it works, but everyone needs to be involved. So I'm going to go on to the first point, which is know your IT estate inside out. Whilst financial resilience was a priority, it's been a priority since the banking crisis. Having a resilient architecture in place, reaching the same scrutiny from regulators, it's really crucial that you define your critical services and identify those systems that support those and underpin those services. So what is key then? So knowing your estate, as I mentioned, inside out, mapping what you have, knowing all the outsourced agreements that you have in place, and really being ahead of the game. Knowing the applications that require support, patching or upgrading, just to ensure that they're remaining simple, safe and current. That's really key, ensure that they are current. And for those of you, like many organisations, you're not alone, where your estate is approaching end of life, the architecture should be, where possible, be decommissioned. Now that seems expensive, but and in many cases, what's working, why fix what ain't broke? But really, in terms of, and going back to security and shaping your future, you need to get the basics right in terms of building for brilliance. Major financial service organisations are reported to typically experience 1 outage per month. Whilst banks they're still relying on outdated siloed IT systems, often those are disconnected from each other, and even those banks are in many cases investing in major IT restructuring programs, still maintain a huge range of legacy estates and systems. It's much easier for a fintech, for example, or a startup who are building from scratch to build those controls from the ground up, because they're starting from a blank canvas. But it's not so easy for those established firms. For larger companies who have sort of evolved over time, they inherit the ills of the past. Their architecture becomes like spaghetti. It needs to be unpicked first before it can be remediated and protected. Many legacy systems become fragile over time, particularly when there's a lack of integration. So really, in the statement I say at the bottom here, mopping up the sins of the past and getting your basics right, that couldn't be more key. So it is sitting down with your architecture team, scoping out the activities, seeing what needs attention, having a short-term, long-term list, and knowing who's responsible for what is really key. So going on to the next slide, which is about creating your technology framework. So there's going to be it may appear a bit of like a shopping list in here. So hopefully it's not, it doesn't appear that way, too much that way. But there are a whole range of considerations to actually when building your technology framework. First of all, I suggest that you define the framework to achieve operational resilience, ensure that it's currently understood. This needs to be clearly clarified and includes all levels of accountability. Then identify the business services that, if they were disrupted, would cause the most harm to a company or indeed to your market integrity. So a claim system or an underwriting system that if that crashed. Then we go on to setting some impact tolerances around those systems. So know what you could actually tolerate. So actually list that down, what your tolerations would be. So if a system goes down, what is the agreed period a business customer could withstand without it being out of action? And this also leads on then to having sufficient workarounds in place too. It's identifying and document the people, the processes, the technology, the facilities, and the information that supports the important business services, and take action to be able to remain within those impact tolerances. This is where disaster recovery comes in. You've got to embed this resilience into the operational risk governance framework. And I know that my consulting colleague, ICSR, Jonathan Graham, covered this in his webinar on the 18th of June. So again, you can go back and have a look at that. But the IT element needs to be baked into your operational scrum. Capacity management is important. To ensure that you have effective capacity management, and monitoring is key. A good risk register all of your products and services and their SLAs, KPIs, but have all of those on a list. Back in late 2018, the financial markets, when they were dealing with the realities of Brexit coming over the horizon, they also pointed out at the time the importance of stress testing for operational resilience, and they saw that as becoming a more important priority, and that was in 2018 and really is key now. So stress testing your applications and services is really key. Make sure you've got a good support partners, good support network around you with the right skills, the right resources and the capabilities. It's important that you include all your third parties in this. They have the right security controls as you do. They should be replicated. You should be testing on them and make sure that it's imperative that they dovetail their controls into yours, and ensure critically that your business services are being monitored. That's an absolute. Monitoring tools are out there on the market, but monitoring tools prevent the failure and mean that you're prepared at the beginning. So maybe culture and learning, as I mentioned, is important. Continuous improvement. We'll come on to that in a minute. So testing and change management also has its part. So all of us are not existing just in BAU. We're building for the future. So when you're running large-scale change projects, ensure that they're critically accepted service. You have the right release processes in place, so that you really tie the practice, ensuring that when actually these systems go live, they don't impact on BAU. So test mercilessly to avoid any issues there. So in summary, for the technology framework, I would say know who your clients are, identify your products and services, identify all the digital systems, the infrastructure and the data, involve third parties in that, all third parties involved in your value chain. Think about the threat in a scenario setting, and ensure that there's a really good incident management process in place. Measure the process and system performance, KPIs I've mentioned, have the right service level agreements. And specifically in terms of IT, I've got sort of 5 additional considerations. I call them identify, protect, detect, respond, and recovery. So identify as having the right asset management, risk management, governance and oversight, business continuity and planning. Project is identifying access alignment with all your business and IT strategies, so projects change. Protect is about detecting vulnerabilities, logging, monitoring, data loss protection, antivirus. Respond is about how you respond, so what happens when things go wrong. Have a good incident process in place incident triaging, and have a fully integrated crisis management. And then finally, in terms of IT consideration, is recovery is about your disaster recovery and restoration planning critically after the event has happened. So moving on to disaster recovery planning. Technology keeps businesses running and ensures organisations can return to ready state once the disruption has ended. So whether you're a cloud-based organisation or traditional on-prem, there are tools out there on the market that are really good end-to-end software that can help you with disaster recovery testing and even automated notifications as early warning systems prior to events happening. It's really crucial that these are managed holistically and collaboratively. There is no point IT practicing this in isolation or going to, as I mentioned earlier, or going to sleep at night thinking that technology department have got that covered. If all goes wrong, their heads will roll. That's not the case. Everybody's involved in DR. So everyone should be involved in the disaster recovery planning and play their part really in providing ensuring that all the assurance that all aspects are covered. So this is about everyone being in this together. Moving on to security. So as we say, a sigh of relief when it hasn't happened to us. So financial services really are a really desirable target due to the vast amount of data and commercially business sensitive information. As businesses start to move away from offline back office functions to leverage digital channels that require automated, speedy, round-the-clock offerings, this is just going to become even more important. So crucial elements, as I see it, when you build your cybersecurity framework, they should include data loss software, visibility monitoring, the critical components of your system, having privileged access management in place, so ensuring who has access to documentation and systems and processes. Leavers and joiners process, that's something that we often forget. People join an organisation, you sort of think, well, let me make sure they have a laptop, and when they leave an organisation, let me take their ID from them. It's not just that, it's so much more. It's about ensuring that they, if you have untoward leavers of an organisation, they could have access to that data, particularly if it's remotely. Across your estate, make sure you have regular patching and health checks on your applications. Use enhanced system monitoring tools. It's really key across your applications. And as I say, this doesn't need to be expensive. There are processes out there that can help you with that. Network containment is very key. Putting in those firewalls is hugely important. Also, having a service catalog in place. That may sound obvious, but how often do we actually update that service catalog? How often do we know availability 24/7 when it's available? What are the controls in the service catalog? Who do you ring at 4 in the morning if your system goes down? And not sort of, oh, not me, it's them. Actually ensure that the service catalog. And also around this, whether you're a large organisation or a small organisation, have a written down, even if it's on a couple of pages, security policy. What is your policy? What is your governance and reporting? And are you actually practicing those? And actually, are you involving your staff in those policies so they actually know what they are? Not about sending a piece of paper around and everybody says, I've understood and read it. Actually, do they actually understand what that means? So moving on to remote shouldn't mean splendid isolation. So we all, well, majority of us working from home at the moment. It was interesting that prior to COVID, seems a million years ago, but prior to COVID, the early part of this year, less than a fifth of the UK workforce had the flexibility to work from home. And although there are really good technology collaboration and meeting tools out there, such as Teams and Zoom as we're using now, and they're really on the ascendant, let's face it, we'd be entirely lost without them. In March this year, only 27% of the UK workforce been really fully briefed on how to work from home. But as we know, this is changing. So isolation is really not should be the case. Also, there's an assumption that 85% increase in overall productivity actually working from home studies. So it's really important that you have the right excuse me, the right suite of collaboration tools in place. They need to have the right endpoint security wraps. They need to be appropriately encrypted. Avoid phishing to reduce fraudulent attempts to obtain sensitive information. They should be version controlled, and they really need to be audited as part of your planning process. Also, what's key is the software training in terms of what you're using, and going back to the fact that a majority of the UK workforce hadn't been briefed on how to use these tools, so that we ensure not only how to use it, but you know what you're using, and also it's critical that you have your staff previously that controlled in your building with the security wraps around it. Now you have your staff that are working from the lounges and garages and wherever they're going to be, but they're all responsible for security, and staff could inadvertently introduce bugs into the system from home, and that's something that really needs to be controlled. So it's really about saying that we all have a part in and accessing data remotely from home down to everyone's responsibility. Now, this is not to scare people, because you should be also, as I say, software training and helping people with that. So just sort of finish off the slides. It's really important that everyone is involved in this, from the top down, as I mentioned before. So the line of defence, as I see this, is to ensure that everyone is involved. It's first of all obvious one, but ensure the board and the senior leaders are brought into this. They must take full responsibility and ownership of the business strategy, but as well as the technical risks that go with that, and compliance. Operational resilience should be reported as part of your company status update. So how you have your status update on a monthly basis, we should be talking about resilience of our systems. The first line of defence will be the business units that use the systems and on a day-to-day basis. Include within that any third parties that are outsourced partners. Include in there, where you can, an independent risk and compliance function. These may be independent business lines, just to audit and just to review and provide advice and support on your operational resilience. So, and as I say, then finally in there, there's an internal audit function to review the quality effect of those controls. So, in summary, really, so planning all this may sound very daunting, and making your business automatically resilient shouldn't be a cause of panic and sort of think, well, what am I going to do now? Oh my goodness me, where do we start? It really shouldn't be like that. And all companies, regulators appreciate the fact that companies need to address this and need to look at this. But it is not a scramble around and let's get an operational resilience structure in place in the next month. It shouldn't be like that. The best way to do it is incrementally, is to know what you can achieve and what you can when. Break these down into manageable bite-sized chunks. This is completely achievable running alongside BAU. I mean, we're doing this in my current organisation, Premier. This is about sort of working through this together. But you manage it where you can. Start with the most important key aspects and then work through it. Having a well-rehearsed business continuity plan is at the centre of the organisation, as we said, and that will complement ensuring that your business is ready to face any crisis head on. Finally, really, is ensuring you run this inwardly and outwardly. yourselves, either via an outsourced provider or through a third party. At all stakeholders levels are crucial. So, resilience is about accepting your new reality. I saw this quote recently that I quite liked. It says you can fight it, you can do nothing or scream about what you lost, or you can accept that, try and put together something that's good. And I think that's really key. It's about so I hope these 6 key ingredients help in your approach to planning. Going back to the beginning of the webinar, where I mentioned in real-time economy, technology failure means business failure, and in uncertain times, it can lead to failure. It is the technology wraps in your organisation planning, the people involved, the framework, and the practice mantra that ensures technology actually moves from failure to the solution for your business. Yeah, that's really key. So they're my thoughts. I'm sure that there are many others, and it's my start of 10 for you, and I really hope that's helpful. Thanks for taking time out today. Please do drop me a line afterwards if you need some separate advice, or indeed speak to Kenneth Underhill and the great team at ICSR, who want to help you with your technology resilience planning. So that's it from me. Over to my able assistant Ben in the background to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Justin. We've got Kenneth on the line as well now to answer questions. I've got a question for you immediately, but if anybody else has a question, please could you ask them through the chat function, and I'll put those to Justin or Kenneth for you. The first question for you, Justin, is about Huawei. The Chinese government warned of unspecified consequences following the decision to remove Huawei from the UK's 5G development. If these consequences include cyber attacks, what can I do quickly to check and enhance the robustness of my infrastructure's security?
So I would suggest with cyber attacks, what would I do quickly? I would ensure that, well, first of all, I would look at your critical systems. I would goes back to involving, if I was doing something quickly, I would involve third parties in that process if you haven't got the knowledge internally. I would scenario set. So I would there are practice software out there that shows you, replicate what it would be like to an attacker into your firewall, and I would practice that with your teams. Do that yourselves. Do that with the third parties to support that. So it's really critical that you're testing your firewalls, or testing your software that you're using from home. But if I was doing that quickly, that is a really important consideration, and something that actually we're practicing now. But I'd engage a third party with that. But I would scenario set across all the applications. Cyber technology.
We've got a couple more questions, Justin, at the moment. Next question is kind of related. As more employees are working remotely, would you caution companies that are considering giving up their office space that they should stress test the paralysis a widespread cyber attack would have if they move to a full remote working environment?
Yes, definitely, absolutely. I mean, I'm not a security expert here, so please, I'll give you a high level. So I'd involve your security teams in that. But of course, because we are, you look at our organisation, there are very few that are going back to work scenarios. So yes, I would base it on the fact that you're all staff who are working remotely, and go from there.
Okay, the next question we've got, Justin. What would be a ballpark percentage of a tech budget associated to tech operational resilience? Is there any market guidance on this, or is it more a case of how long is a piece of string?
That's a piece of string. No, I don't think so. And I'm really key with this is that it shouldn't be. This is information that you have already. Okay, there are some, you shouldn't. This shouldn't be an expensive exercise. I'm not. I think it's important that you have. You obviously have a security team. to build your security framework. But these are systems that you have. And a lot of this is about housekeeping, not about creating huge budgets and doing that. So it's not how long is a piece of string. I think it's existing what you have already, about ensuring you've got the people that know, that try and test it, which part of the budget, that's just a day-to-day BAU activity. Where it does it, I guess, become expensive is having sort of monitoring tools and early warning tools across your infrastructure. That's where you will need to spend some money. But in terms of a budget, it shouldn't be expensive. You should be doing this in, £100,000 for a decent sort of, I would say as a figure for medium-sized larger-sized organisations, I think for initial review. But it shouldn't be. It's not a case of throwing money at the situation. It's actually using the resources you've got around you already.
Thank you, Justin. I've got one last question for you, and it's a reference to the news that broke overnight about Twitter being hacked. If Twitter can be hacked with their resources available, what chance do other companies with smaller budgets have?
Well, that's a difficult one to answer, because I must confess I didn't actually see that this morning. I was probably too busy preparing for this session, so and contemplating. You're never going to. The thing is, you're never going to mitigate, and you can't mitigate against any issue. And Twitter's a large organisation, smaller. It's interesting. They tried to hack the larger, high-profile organisations. I'm not saying it's going to happen to anybody, of course not. It's larger organisations where they're high profile, and obviously these hackers are becoming more and more increasingly sophisticated as our technology gets sophisticated. So it is about doing what you can to have those effective controls in place. So which means that having the planning and practicing it is key. It's very difficult to say we're ever going to get a situation where I'm completely and utterly future-proof. I want to move to that nirvana state, but you can't guarantee that. So I think that the high-profile, it's unfortunate high-profile organisations that are hacked, but I'll say, and they have probably got really tried this, but you do what you can to make sure that you are, you give assurance that you are controlled. I think the data element is really key. That's really where you make sense, is actually around data. So it is ensuring that the data is protected where you can, and holding that customer data. In that is where the the concerns would lie for me, is that we have to make sure that is sufficiently.
I mean, one of the key pieces of the PRA and FCA approach to operational resilience is that they actually expect disruption to occur, and this is all about planning for how you respond to that disruption. So they anticipate that firewalls are not infallible. They anticipate that there will be disruption, and it's not just about hackers. It's also about your own system implementation, or migration of data on a reorganization of your infrastructure. They are expecting that there will be disruption. What they want to know is there is a resilience and a process of monitoring that will ensure that when it does happen, there is a quick response. And I think that's the key piece of underlying the whole approach to operational resilience.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Kenneth. I think that it is absolutely down to respond. It's how that organisation responds to it that is really key. Systems and the controls and the people. And you can demonstrate and manipulate that.
Yeah.
That's all the questions we've got, Justin and Kenneth.
Okay, well, I mean, obviously, if there are questions, then please drop a note offline. And let us know. I mean, I appreciate this is a lot of this is at a high level, but obviously we can go into more detail. Any questions you can.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Justin, thank you very much. Well done. I hope you all have a good rest of your day. Please be
Thanks for your time.
if you've got questions.
Cheers all. Thank you.
Bye.
Good luck. Bye.